The matter is this part here. It must be strong. No, tight is the word it must be.
Oh, that's very interesting. Yes, very. Excuse me for disturbing your work, but would it help if you called again?
The taxis of India find their way through any mob. It will only be a matter of minutes now.
Well, it's a shame to waste a whole day like this.
You should go to the riot. You may find it amusing.
It's dangerous, isn't it?
Danger? Only for the students.
Oh, how's that? Why just the students?
Well, in the food riots, it is always the same. The train station in our village is a great stop for the politicians. You should go. Everyone is there, waiting.
Yes, but what about the students?
Well, when the train stops, the minister gets off, the students will attack the first line of police. Then they retreat, and the police chase them to the other side of the station. Just as the police catch them, Sing Party people waiting in the freight yard come out and attack the rear of the police. But the police know this. And the reserve force comes up the Muti Road and attacks the rear of the Sing Party people. Then the villagers, they will cross the station and attack the rear of the reserve police. Now, the second reserve police will come down the Jama Road and attack the villagers. It is always the same in the food riots. There'll be much dust and screaming everywhere. And then Sing Party people and the villagers will leave, unnoticed, of course, through the freight yard, and leave the students alone to fight and be arrested.
I always thought those things were spontaneous. Sounds like some sport. Who organizes those things?
He does.
Spontaneity is infinitely more effective when it is properly aimed at the target. Mr. Johnson, Ron Chen. I left a letter for you at your hotel.
Oh, yes. That letter. Or something I'm supposed to endorse and hand to the minister.
You mean you're not going to do it?
Of course not. It's not the sort of thing I do.
A pot of tea, Mr. Johnson?
I'm sorry, I have no time.
Your taxi will be a while yet. I read your book, Mr. Johnson, and I was left with the impression that you were a man entirely committed to his words.
I am?
Then, what specifically did you object to in my letter?
Oh, please, that letter. I'm not interested in being involved.
Then be interested. The hungry are interested. The students involved in what you call a sport are interested. The dying are interested. I'm sorry. It is hot. Hot and dry. A climate in which it is easy to be indifferent. Let us try and not succumb to it.
Insight Stories of spiritual conflict in the 20th century. Insight.
Most of us give lip service to the dignity of the human person. We say that each individual is possessed of infinite value because made in the image and likeness of God. We even go further than that. We say that these persons together form a single race or family. God is the father of this family, and all men, as his children, are brothers one of another. This means that the destinies of all men are intertwined. Their interests are fundamentally one. They are bound together by unbreakable strands of spiritual steel. The common brotherhood of all man. This is the fundamental principle of the Judeo-Christian tradition. We all profess it, but do we really believe it? Do you look upon all men, not just those like you in education or race or nationality, but all men as your brothers? And what of those in need? Do you feel their pain, their degradation? Are you ready to do something about it?
It is too political. Nothing more than an attack at the opposition. Somewhat veiled, but nevertheless an attack. I have no intention of lending the prestige of the publication I work for to extremists. I do not want to become involved in any politics that runs the risk of violence in the streets.
You are involved, Mr. Johnson. You are the author of a very important book on famine. So you must know that hunger causes riots, demonstrations, as well as bad teeth.
As well as I know that there are politicians who will use any human misery to advance their careers. I more than indicated in my book that the sly maneuvering of political administrators was a factor contributing to the failure of the famine relief programs.
Exactly. The minister arriving on that train at this moment should know what his administrators are doing. Do you know, Mr. Johnson? Do you know what happens with much of the food India must beg of the world?
I read your letter.
And do you believe it?
Well, I hear the gossip. Why not?
Why not? Why not is a rather indifferent attitude for a man the press characterizes as a spokesman for hunger. Follow me, Mr. Johnson. Not 5 miles from here is Kerala camp. Every day, thousands of villagers, dried out from the drought, arrive there. Their bodies are sick and twisted from hunger and disease. This morning, the skies were black with vultures.
I have seen those camps.
And you doubt that the administrators are stealing their food?
No, I just said I'm well aware that all these things are going on. It's not a question of doubt. It is a question of my getting involved in a statement that implicates a cabinet minister.
My letter will not implicate him at all. Your job, it seems to me, is to report the news, is it not?
But not your news.
Believe me, the man arriving on the train is a saint. But he is surrounded by a wall of greedy cobras, and no one has been able to get through to him. I sincerely thought that you would take the letter to him this morning. I begged men to risk their lives to call attention to it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I never had the slightest intimation that all this was going on.
But you can still help if you want to. If you'd rather not report anything for your newspaper, then please take this to the train and see him. He will see you. He will listen to you. It will not implicate you.
You are asking me to tell an important minister that his administrators are stealing food, and that if he doesn't do something about it, there'll be bloody riots all over the state. And of course, while I'm saying this, a small riot will be going on outside just to prove it. Well, now that gets me pretty involved, I'd say.
Well, get involved, Mr. Johnson. For me, there are only two ways in which an honest man can function. He may go to a cave in Benares, fast, and proclaim his mystical self, or he must commit his energies to the betterment of mankind. And the more gifted he is, the more he must commit. The rest are cowards and money changers, and few of us have strength enough to fast.
Well, we of the West don't find life that simple.
Help us, Mr. Johnson.
I gave what I could. It took 1,000 hours and a lot of sweat to write my book.
Did you make money with it?
Does that matter? That wasn't why I did it.
Then your commitment is to the compassion you feel for these helpless people.
Well, of course. To humanity.
To humanity. Humanity is a rather abstract concept to feel compassion for. Where do we touch it? I can show you real wounds.
Not everyone wants to storm the palace. My compassion is as deep as any man's. We do what we can.
If you really want to do what you can, go to the train and talk to him.
No! I am not in a position to be involved in Indian politics no matter what.
Mr. Johnson, there are 1,000 steps to true compassion. You have climbed perhaps 2 or 3.
Well, now, who are you to say that? I can see your compassion playing the hero of the food riots, riding to New Delhi on the backs of the hungry.
If your vision is true, I hope there's food enough for us when we arrive.
Oh, clever, but evasive.
And let me say this. I have no political ties or ambitions.
It's well known that communists support your demonstrations.
Mr. Johnson, my attitude toward communists is not entirely unlike your own. But they help us when no one else will. We accept their help because the first thing a hungry man must eat is his pride.
Mr. Chan, they're fired. We were rushing to the station and they're fired.
Was anyone hit?
One of the students, a girl. She's dying.
Where is she?
She's in the streets. No one will touch her.
We must bring her here.
Cannot bring her here. This is a government building.
But she will die if we can't bring her here and get a doctor.
It is against the law. I am responsible for the building.
You'll be responsible for her death if we can't bring her here.
Bring her.
Thank you. Go for a doctor.
What is it? What happened?
Happened? Nothing I know of.
What about that taxi?
Oh, the taxi. It should arrive now. The riot is over.
The waiter ran out. I imagine he'll be back in a moment. You're not from the village.
No, I am not from the village. I came down from the university this morning.
Oh, well then. You missed my lecture this morning.
Are you Mr. Roger Johnson? Professor Ponderes speaks very highly of you. I intended to come, but we had to come down for the demonstrations.
Are you worried about something?
A girl was hurt at the train station. It might be somebody I know.
A friend.
Maybe my sister.
I just don't understand it. A girl of your caste, do you really believe these demonstrations, this violence will solve anything?
I do not know. But we must do something. Even if it does not change anything. Sometimes the boys who are working at Corella camp get very mad.
You know her?
No, I think she is from the engineering school.
Put her in here.
Has the doctor arrived yet?
No, not yet.
She is bleeding badly.
But she breathes. She still lives. Get something for her head.
Is there nothing we can do?
No, not till the doctor arrives.
Mr. Chan!
Oh, thank you. Thank you for coming.
Get some water.
Who is she?
She's a student.
There must be another way.
I admired your book, Mr. Johnson. That was another way. But many people have died of starvation since you wrote your first chapter. Why do we have famine?
Oh, please.
No. Tell me.
Well, as I've pointed out, there are a number of reasons. Overpopulation, inadequate farming technology, extended periods of drought, religious taboos against certain foods. Well, every schoolboy knows this.
And what do these schoolboys think we need to change things? Shall I call a demonstration against the barren soil, the dry wind, pregnant mothers? Or blame Vishnu and Shivji? No? You, Mr. Johnson, are the maker of long-range solutions. We want an end put to starvation today. It's as simple as that. Just as simple as helping a fallen stranger. Can you not do that?
It's much more complicated than that. There's a considerable risk involved. I can't stake my reputation on supporting you and your violent methods.
Those fine theories and passionate words mean nothing if you're not willing to risk something for them.
Please try to understand something. We're both men concerned with famine. When I speak, people admire my logic. When you speak, they say, let's march. My commitment is just different than yours, that's all.
Your commitment? Your commitment is like our dust, dry. Mr. Johnson, there are people dying of starvation. Other countries help us. And they will continue to help us because they cannot turn away. Some for selfish political reasons, but primarily because they cannot turn away from the dying man. Help us, Mr. Johnson.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but somehow I just can't toss my life, my obligations aside. I can be thrown out of the country for meddling in politics. I have a wife, children, a reputation. I just can't risk it. This is all too much for me. All the senseless energy of this violence. And for what? For what?
The street is the only place we have to say what must be said.
Does it have to be said in blood?
It has to be said, and with blood if necessary.
Whatever happened to passive resistance?
Do you really care?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I do.
Passive resistance. Cheers to Gandhi and Nehru. Passivity against the English was a miracle. It means nothing to other Indians. You may sit on the street and you're just one of so many stones. We do not seek or encourage violence. We demonstrate because we cannot stand idly by while our people suffer and die of famine. No doubt some of us must give our blood, but the world will know about it. You know about it. You see it. You know what must be done. And yet you lack the courage to do anything about it.
Mr. Chan, she is dead.
Thank you.
I must go. You should not leave her here. It is not safe.
Thank you very much for coming. Cover her. She was a young girl.
Is that your eulogy? She was a young girl? Why don't you say she was a young girl who died for nothing? For nothing, Mr. Chan! Not for hunger, nor famine, nor drought, nor corruption, but for some stupid reasons you gave her. Reasons students never take the trouble to understand.
Why do you mock her? She could feel. She worked at guerrilla camp. She saw thousands of people die every day. She could feel. That's what moved her. You can feel only the selfish pride of a successful author. So you're moved to do nothing. You're afraid even to risk the visa in your passport.
You are for the taxi?
Please take my bag.
2/3 of the world's peoples do not get enough to eat. 300 million children lack the food they need to survive. Every day, 10,000 people die of starvation. Can you ignore the plight of these people? 80% of the world's peoples are forced to subsist at the present time on 20% of the world's foods. 200 million Indians live on less than $3 a month. In many areas of the world, 3 out of 4 children do not live past their first birthday. You can help these people. The average American spends more on alcohol each year than 1 out of 4 of his fellow human beings have to live on. The average American family throws into the garbage can each day enough food to feed a South American family of 6. Am I my brother's keeper? I'm more than my brother's keeper. I'm my brother's brother. But I can't help everybody. Then select those whose need is the greatest, whose pain is most intense. But can't they help themselves? They can, but they need my help to help themselves. Why should I? Because God lives in them. If I turn away from them, I turn away from God. If I close my heart to them, I close my heart to God. You mean my salvation is bound up with helping them? Absolutely. I was hungry, Christ said, and you gave me to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me to drink. I was naked, and you clothed me. I was homeless, and you took me in. I was in jail, and you came to visit me. When, Lord, they said, did we see you hungry or thirsty or naked or homeless or in jail? And Christ replied, when you did it to the least of my brothers, you did it to me. If the hungry of the world were to line up outside your door, they would stretch single file around the world 25 times. But the most important thing is not the length of the line. The most important thing is whether or not your door and your heart is open.
Insight is a production of the Paulist Fathers, a group of Catholic priests who serve their God by serving those outside their church.